stream is concerned, but in my defense, we've just started a whole new thing here at the Skews. We're trying to broadcast simultaneously to multiple places, YouTube and Facebook for now, maybe other places in the future. And so to do that, we're using a brand new software that we hadn't used before. Hopefully it is working, and goddamn it, either way, we're trying our best. Ain't we, Mark?
I mean, you're trying your best. I just sort of tag along.
yeah, you just sort of show up. Anyway, I'm out here with my air conditioner in the background, suitably white trashy, and I should still be able to read y'all's comments and all that good stuff. And we got these this little caption down here, and Mark's got the logo above his head and a bunch of fun stuff like that. I'm getting some comments now. People saying, "What's up? Hello, fingers crossed." So I'm going to take that to mean that that it's working. So thank the fake Lord for that. All right. Today is Thursday, August 20th. I'm Trey Crowder, and that's Mark Agee. How you doing,
a minute
Mark?
in, and you already killed God, Trey.
Welcome to Evening Skews. As always, we like to start with a dipshit update. And tonight, for the second consecutive episode, we turn our gaze upon the American left for those purposes. Tuesday at the Democratic National Convention, rising liberal superstar Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or she is more lovingly known, AOC, the Democratic Congresswoman for New York, was given a sparse 99 seconds with which to address the convention audience. And in that short amount of time, she inadvertently kickstarted a veritable firestorm on liberal media, both mainstream and social. Here's what NBC News tweeted right after she got done. So it says, in one of the shortest speeches of the DNC, Rep. Ocasio-Cortez did not endorse Joe Biden. Quote, "I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America." Now, y'all ain't ever going to believe this, but that started some shit amongst liberals. Anybody knows anything about us knows we love to get pissed off at each other. People were mad. Why is AOC being divisive in a time when we should be unified? Why is she sticking to her socialist guns when we should all be rallying behind Joe Biden? But turns out that's all dumb, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, it's she was following the rules of the process, which is what you do at a pomp and circumstance ceremony. Is so this situation, she was selected as a Bernie delegate months ago. So to come to the nomination, he still has his delegates. His delegates still nominate him. And then once Biden has officially won the convention, which will happen tonight, I'm guessing, then Bernie releases his delegates and they do the pro forma thing of going over, I don't know if they physically move or whatever, they would in a real convention or whatever. But it's like, it'd be like if they hung a silver medal around someone's neck and everybody's like, she won't admit who won the gold. That's not how this process works. She's doing what she was supposed to do, what she was brought there to do. And reporters should have looked up how the convention works before trying to make a big controversy out of nothing. Yeah,
but where's the fun in that, Mark? Why look into things or be endeavor to be accurate when instead you can just stir shit up? In fairness, they did pretty quickly go back on that, NBC News, saying this tweet should have included more details on the nominating process. We have deleted the tweet to prevent its further spread. AOC was asked by the DNC to second Sanders' nomination. The nomination is a procedural requirement of the convention. So they did clarify it later, but it was a little bit too late, in my opinion.
You know what the giveaway should have been? Second. She seconded the nomination. Where was your controversy about the first person who nominated him? That seems to be the first mistake. The person, it should have been a big clue, I think.
Yeah, but I think this is an example of the thing that happens too much, way too much on the left, in my opinion, is this sort of like cannibalization thing that we have going on. Like, you can say what you want about the right, but them motherfuckers stick together, and we're real quick to sort of jump on each other's faces. Now, a lot of people were coming back for AOC even immediately. Like, as soon as it came up, they were like, this is bullshit. Y'all are misrepresenting this. This isn't fair. But a lot of other people, again, were very quick to get fired up and pissed off. And I just don't think we're doing ourselves any favors with that kind of thing, like, it doesn't help anybody. And in typical AOC fashion, she went in on them afterwards and laid it all out for everybody, and said, "This is what she tweeted in response." You waited in response to their clarification. Her response to that was, "You waited several hours to correct your obvious and blatantly misleading tweet. It sparked an enormous amount of hatred and vitriol, and now the misinformation you created is circulating on other networks, all just to generate hate clicks from a pre-recorded routine procedural motion." So...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what there's also, I mean, everybody has pre-established narratives, right? And like, you see people joke about the Dems in disarray stuff, but like, the media's they're predisposed to think of Dems as a disorganized, self-hating party because they are, and so even some cases where they're not, it sort of leans into that. Whereas Republicans are predisposed to be able to hold their caucus together because they mostly believe the same 3 or 4 things, where the Dems are a coalition party. It's just a different sort of thing. But it's hard enough to keep a coalition together when they only share a few core beliefs without people from the outside trying to inflame passions over bullshit.
Right. Christine Least Duncan said, "Right, the only focus should be getting Trump out. I don't care what the hell the DNC does." And, I agree with, to me, we got one job and we've had one job the whole time. But I mean, that's what most people are saying. And that's not what she was saying, but just, we can't have, this type of shit going on right now. And a lot of people are saying, talk about Bannon, talk about Obama, and we're gonna get to all of that. Believe me, we got all that coming up. So let's see. Denise Dutton Ben Schoof says Biden won the nomination last night by winning the roll call, which included Sanders' votes. Tonight, Biden accepts. Yeah. Right. There's no there's no debate on any of that. It's just how it got represented. I'm touching my mustache again. A lot of people are talking about the mustache over here. It's as divisive as AOC is, apparently, Mark. Some people hate it, others love it. Fiona Perez says the mustache is okay, but quit messing around with it. What's the point, Fiona, of growing a mustache like this if you're not going to twirl it? But okay, I hear you. I'll cut it down. So a lot of other news from the DNC, and a lot of it, and not all of it, is as upsetting as the situation with AOC. For example, last night on the final night, last night at the convention, liberals were reminded of better days, brighter times, when the man himself, Barack Obama, addressed the convention. And he's gotten some shit for not being as vocal as he should be during all this Trump stuff, and not it's just people that we just miss him. That's all it is. I think we're we wish he would come back and do something about this. And even though that can't happen, people want to get upset at him for not being around enough or whatever. But in my opinion, last night he laid it all on the table.
You gonna play a speech, or you want me to? Sorry, I was gonna say I wish in America we wouldn't look for political mommies and daddies as much as we do. Right. I wish the great man theory of history, we didn't rely on it so much to have somebody riding over the horizon to save us from ourselves. Couldn't it's not supposed to be how it works. It's typically not how the world really works. And we need I always thought the Queen of England was bullshit. But having a national figurehead,
yeah,
allows your politicians to be treated like regular people. Like if we had a queen or king to go to ribbon cuttings and to be our national daddy and mommy, while we could treat our politicians like the scumbags they are and just yell at them to do what we want. You could walk up in front of 10 Downing and just yell at the prime minister. That's awesome. Why can't we do that to the president?
Yeah, I saw related to that, I saw a clip that went viral from the Prime Minister of Australia, who was giving some sort of address in a neighborhood, and in the middle of his address, some dude stepped out the front door and was like, "Oh, mate, can you get off the grass, please? I've only just reseeded it. Thank you." And just shitting, and the Prime Minister's like, "Oh, sorry about that."
Yeah.
And just, And yeah, you don't see that type of thing here.
You can't get within like 100 yards of the president without being in three sniper scopes and being pre-approved and walking through 5 metal detectors.
But back to Obama. I thought he delivered, because he didn't mince words at all. Like, he made it pretty clear where he stood on the whole situation and how dire he feels the circumstances are right now. I mean, he called Donald Trump out by name multiple times and was very explicit in, letting everybody know how he feels about Trump. Because, like, as anybody that's sort of kept up with American politics for any amount of time knows, that there's this sort of unspoken or unwritten rule, it seems, amongst presidents that you kind of just don't really shit talk the other presidents if you're a president. It's like some sort of fraternity thing or whatnot. They don't generally do that, no matter how opposed they are to each other. I remember Obama's inauguration, him really giving it up for George W. Bush and saying thank you and all this stuff. And a lot of people, liberals at the time, were mad about that. But that's kind of just how they operate. It's like a code of conduct they seem to have. But he threw all that shit away last night where Donald Trump is concerned.
Yeah, the norm is you go away once your 2 terms are over.
Right.
Which, I don't know. It seems a little bizarre to me because you're a politician. You're always a politician. Like, no, that's another way in which we treat our presidents like retired kings. Like, you go away and then you just get like people like George W. now because they beatify him and they turn him into like some like nonpartisan, like above the fray figure. Like he's like a retired god on Olympus or some shit. And it's Obama's a voter. He can diss Trump like anybody else. We should just be people. And,
right.
I don't know why we do that. I guess it's like the same reason they term limited FDR or tried to term limit presidents after FDR to keep people from being too popular and to being able to establish themselves as dictators. But I think one thing we've learned is it only takes 3 years to do that if you try real hard.
Yeah.
So.
No shit. But again, he didn't mince words. So here's some of the things he said. Here's a quote from his address. I never expected that my successor would embrace my vision or continue my policies. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did. And then a little bit later, he said, Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe.
He can't, Obama still can't stop doing that thing, that rhetorical thing where you give your opponent all the credit first. It says, I hoped he would grow into this. Based on what did you have that hope? The man's never held a job before. He's never expressed any interest in public policy or political leadership or leadership of his own. Trump Organization is a small company, 30 people, and 5 of them are his kids. It's not he never had any. It's like one of the. I just want to be like, why are you're still lying a little bit, Barack? You didn't have any of those hopes.
I was about to bring up hope. I feel like maybe it was a, however naive or misguided hope, but still some kind of hopefulness or something. Because, dude, I know how ridiculous it sounds now and how ridiculous it sounded then. But I was trying to tell myself a version of the same thing at the time when he was taking the office over. I was, telling myself oh, well, maybe if for no other reason than his ego will blanch so much at the thought of being the worst president in history. If that's the only motivation still, maybe he'll actually try to take this seriously and do the best that he can. Well, maybe he is doing the best that he can, but I was trying to, lie to myself at the time too. It won't be as bad as you think, maybe, and then turns out it's been easily as bad, if not worse. But I could buy that Obama was, trying to tell himself some shit in that moment.
Are we? Okay. Well, I guess hopes don't have to be a realistic one. So I'll take your point. Hopes can be I hope to have my own island one day. It's not going to happen, but I can hope. Right.
Right.
So we won't put it in that basket. Okay, but also, is this the worst case scenario? Because I don't think it wasn't for me. The worst case for me was a nuclear war with Iran or something. And
yeah.
So
right. Well, as a lot of speakers at the DNC have pointed out, like, you know, it can still get a lot worse. Like, if you have any kind of thoughts of, well, things are obviously terrible, but how much worse can they get? Yeah, they can get a whole lot worse, as you just illuminated. You know, nuclear war. I mean, just look at how much we've degraded in the first 4 years. That ain't going to stop. It's not going to just like level out or plateau. That's going to continue. Yeah. And if you extrapolate that for 4 more years, yeah, it could get a lot worse.
No, yeah, I mean, another 4 years, we'll live in a fairly high functioning one party state on the way down. But I don't think people get the full on fascism here wouldn't feel that different to most of us than how it feels now. Like, they'll still let us tweet our dumb shit. You can still like in China, people still have VPNs. They can watch this if they want. They can read the New York Times. It doesn't. I don't think the authoritarianism works the way people Americans think it is, or how close we are. But right. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the one thing I'm disappointed in is not Trump. Like, I thought more people would have turned on him for governing this bad, but it just shows how travel we all are. Like, I saw it this morning. His approval rating is 0.5 point higher now than it was a year ago. After 100,000,
that's so hard for me. I mean, I do believe you, but that's so hard for me to believe. Like, I don't. How the fuck is that possible?
I don't know. We're 3 months into the Great Depression too, and 170,000 people dead, and his approval rating went up.
I do think, and again, you know, here comes that naivete again, possibly, but I do think, because anecdotally, I know some of these people personally. I do believe that there were a lot of lifelong Republicans in 2016 who voted for Donald Trump because they're lifelong Republicans and they were never going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and he was a Republican, and they didn't like him, but they were like, well, but, you know, it'll be okay. He's still a Republican. He's got the Republican establishment behind him, you know, whatever. And they voted for him then, who have since realized that, you know, that was a mistake, and who can't stomach voting for him again. Like, there's way more people than I'm comfortable admitting who are just straight up Trumpansies, as I call them on the internet, just hardcore Trumpers who that's what they're going to be no matter what. They're like way too deep into the Trump pool, and there ain't no getting them back. That's true. Those people exist, and again, in higher numbers than I like to admit, because of how terrifying it is. But I do think there are a lot of, you know, more sane than that Republicans who won't go with them again, I don't think. But they're not out in force or in numbers and talking about it, because it's hard to admit you were wrong, and also, you know, just talking shit in that direction. They'd just rather not do it. But I think, like, in their hearts, they know they fucked up and are not going to repeat it again. But again, maybe that's just another thing that I'm telling myself. Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, like, there's a liberal tendency to think that they can fact check people out of their beliefs, and I wish that there wasn't that. I wish people understood how id-based people are, instead of being like, well, I'm above the fray and here's a few facts. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. Like, people have been saying that in 2016, the prior 30 years to that, 20 years, 25, whatever, public polls have been like, we hate Hillary Clinton. And fair, significantly unfair. There are reasons to have beefs with her or whatever, but like, Democrats thought, well, we can talk them out of it. I know she was coming off the highs of her career, not being Secretary of State for 4 years, because people out of all the former president glow thing that happens to George W. or whatever happens to everybody. So after being out of politics for 3 or 4 years, she had high approval ratings. But then once she was back in the fray, they went through the floor again, and people thought, well, we'll get put together a PowerPoint and show her attributes. We'll call her, say, Hillary's your abuela, and show them that Pokemon go to the polls bullshit, and we will win them over. And it was a bad idea. And maybe we'll actually listen to people now, and they say they don't like somebody, even if we think it's unfair, and nominate a different candidate. But 2016 is not 2020, and like all the people you're talking about, we're just never going to vote for Hillary Clinton. You could have nominated Slade himself, and it wasn't going to happen.
Right. But and we talked about this before on here, but I think that like a lot of those people that you're talking about, I could be wrong. I don't think most of them have remotely approaching that same level of vitriol and distaste for Joe Biden that they had for Hillary Clinton. Right. Well, and I think that's like a hugely important factor. I think that's going to make a big difference. Just that fact alone. People on the other side don't hate him the way that they hated her, like even a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about before, that like they're trying to brand him as like a revolutionary communist. Like the dude's been in the Senate since 1973. Like, if he was going to come out for murdering your landlords like Chairman Mao, I think he would have announced it by now.
Right, and sort of to that point, Obama, of course, had a section in his speech where he talked about his buddy Joe and how great Joe is and how much he loves Joe. And he went in this whole thing. And then Kamala, in her address, which we're going to talk about as well, she also touched on this. Every Democrat lately that talks about Biden touches on this. His life as a single parent, and we had raising the two sons after the death of their mother and going back and forth between Delaware and Washington, D.C. on a 4-hour commute every night and stuff like that. And Mark, I think, you're going to scoff at this, but it's true. I'm happily married, but I have 2 young sons, and I'm not going to lie. Shit like that works on me. That shit plays for me. Like, I'm sitting there listening to that, and I just start to get moved by it. I'm like, God damn.
It works.
A dad doing his best.
It works on everybody. I mean, I remember that's what's so unfair about a lot of our personal narrative politics. Like, I remember being in 2000 when Bush slammed Gore as a legacy candidate, which was funny because his dad was president.
Right.
And Nader was slamming Gore as a tool of the oligarchs. And I was like, but Nader is a millionaire. And so, and Bush's dad, it's like these narratives, whatever, but people want to see, it's so rare to see anything close to a working class president. Biden wasn't a millionaire until after 2016. That was based on book sales. I mean, he had to borrow money from Obama to keep from losing his house after paying for his son Beau's cancer treatments. And which you'd think that'd be like, oh, I should be for Medicaid for all, because if that can happen to me as the vice president who still makes a lot of money, what would happen to a poor person? But he's still not. That's another beef for another day. But yeah, it is a moving personal story.
Right, and that just, again, like, naivete maybe, but that he has a moving personal story. He has objectively been through a lot of shit on a personal level by anybody's metric, and like, I don't know how that doesn't make you at least a little sympathetic. You know what I mean? Like, for him to have not been affected by any of that would have to make him a monster, a straight up monster. And I just don't believe that he's a monster. He's a career, lifelong politician. And he's, same old in terms of American politics, and all that type of shit is true. But I don't think that he's a bad guy fundamentally, and that's such a huge contrast between what the alternative is, that alone would be enough for me, regardless of anything else.
We should, I'll take a brief moment to acknowledge there was the sexual assault allegation against him. I just don't know what to do about it, because I throw my hands up with this one, because even a Vox reporter wrote a long explainer about, she spent a year chasing this story and couldn't quite pin down the details, and then the alleged victim changed her story a couple of times, which is like understandable. It happens, but it makes it harder to verify. And so anyway, it's one accuser, and do it that way you will. But people have a hard time. People just generally don't think of Biden as a bad guy. And for example, last night, Kerry Washington did a little bit for the DNC. Kerry Washington played Anita Hill in the HBO movie about the hearing where Joe Biden absolutely was depicted treating Anita Hill like shit. And on the record, he wasn't. This was the 80s. People didn't think the same way about sexual harassment. And he covered Clarence Thomas's ass, which is another beef for another day again with Biden. But people generally just, when he does dumb shit, they would be like, well, that's just Joe. He messed up. He'll get it right next time. And so I really don't think this stuff doesn't stick to him because he seems generally affable and he seems like he has a warm heart and he has a moving personal story. I don't know anything about him personally, but it's the way it comes across on camera. So I don't think this stuff's going to stick to him the same way.
Brandon Chard says he likes to sniff young girls' hair. What's that all about? Yeah, there's a lot of like creepy and off-putting video clips of Joe Biden with young girls. And look, I don't know. I don't want to make too many excuses for that or whatever, but I think that I do think it is possible that it isn't as nefarious as it looks. He just doesn't understand that you ought not do that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the old school, like, backslappy politician who thinks that, like, rubbing someone's shoulders while they talk at a podium is like a pro. And apparently they announced last year he was cutting that back because he realized it's against the rules now or whatever. But yeah, there is definitely some video of him like hugging, kids, but like, are we choosing to go? Do we think Joe Biden's I mean, is that what we're saying about Joe? Is that he's a kid diddler, or like, what are we like? No one's accused him of that, right? Except outside of like QAnon bullshit. But like, so like some of the stuff's taken out of context. Like there's one of the most viral pictures of accusing him of stuff like that was from his son's funeral, where he's kissing his granddaughter on the top of the head from behind, and his grandson is, I don't know, it's his father's funeral, and he's making a weird face. People construe that as him looking at Joe like being his granddad being a creep to his sister, but I don't think that's what it was.
No, yeah, that particular example specifically, you can miss me with that shit. He's at his son's funeral and he's kissing his granddaughter on the forehead or whatever. Like, yeah, dude, fuck trying to make some bullshit out of that. But anyway,
I agree.
So Obama talked about Biden. He talked about how dangerous Trump is. He talked about how much he loves Biden, how great Biden is. And he sort of ended on this note of talking about unmotivated voters in America, right? People that don't typically come out and vote because like they just have lost any kind of faith in the process or the government or any of that forever. And he went on this whole thing about like, believe me, I understand why you would feel that way. He was like, the white factory worker in Pittsburgh who's been laid off, multiple times and out of work. Like I understand why you would feel like the government don't give a fuck about you anymore. The black single mother, I understand why you feel the government has never given a fuck about you. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. He wasn't just on there throwing F-bombs around. But he went this whole thing about, I understand why you would have no faith in the government at large. But the other side, they count and prey upon your cynicism. Like that exact cynicism, well-founded as it may be, is going to be the very thing that allows them to win and continue their reign. And like that whole concept, I could not possibly agree more with. Like that's the thing that I just feel like screaming from the fucking rooftops at every available point is exactly that. Believe me, man, I sympathize. Like anybody that's like, no, fuck this. I ain't voting. Fuck all these motherfuckers. I hear you. But right. Like, it's not the one of them is going to win. One of the two is going to win. And when you stay home because of that, it means that the one who wins is Donald Trump. And again, if you think it can't get worse, however disillusioned you are with the government, if you think it can't get much worse, I promise you it can and it will. So please put that aside for just a little while.
I understand your reasoning, but that does not move people. It just doesn't.
Nothing fucking moves people.
That's not. But that's not. I mean, I don't think that's true. Like you can actually promise people to make their lives better. You can do that, and politicians should do that, even when they know they can't quite follow through on it. They should aspirationally say, "We can." Fuck, a guy announced we were going to the moon before we'd ever been to space, and we did it. But the same night, the Rock gave that speech last night. Today, Joe Biden's most progressive policy guy announced they probably won't be able to do anything good when they take office because Trump's tax cuts have wiped the cupboard clear. And they don't have any money. So So you're already telling people you're not even going to try to follow through on your actual platform. The convention isn't even over. So I'm saying, like, if you want those people to vote, tell them you can do stuff for them. Try.
Okay. You're right about that, because because like I remember right after Trump won, there were people, the whole narrative of like he had the white working class voters and how can liberals get those voters? And I made one of my liberal redneck videos about it, which was like tongue in cheek. I was half joking, although like there's a lot of truth to it, where I said, how do you get those people? You lie to them. What are you, fucking new here? You haven't been paying attention? Did you see what he just did? You gotta lie to them, which like
I don't think they're lies though. Like I think like the classic.
You don't think Trump was lying when he said all that shit to those people about getting their jobs back and that type of thing and making Mexico pay and all of that shit? You don't think those were lies when he said it?
There are degrees to this shit, right? But he expressed a sincere aspiration to build the wall, and he has tried to build it, and he tried to get Mexico to pay for it. The fact he couldn't do it, and the fact it's a bad idea, is separate from the fact of whether he meant he was going to try to do it. But the other examples, like Bernie ran around like 2016 saying we got to get Medicare for all. Hillary not only said we need to figure out a more practical way to get everyone health care. She said it was like trying to tell people they could have a pony, and it was a non-starter, right? So like she compared making people's lives better to buying everyone a pony. We're trying to stop people from losing their houses when they find a lump in their titty. It's not like we don't have to it's not pie in the sky, like I'm saying.
What you brought up the example a minute ago of like, because of Trump's tax cuts and his economic policies, we're going to be feeling the ramifications of that for at least the next 4 years. That's like, that shit is true. Like it will. Like that's how. Like Obama came in during the recession and caught a lot of shit for the economy, even though like he obviously didn't have nothing to do with it. Like those gears were already in motion before he even showed up. But as soon as you're in office, that's what people hold you to, and then the economy gradually got better, but then Trump took office and the economy got even better because of a lot of shit that Obama had done, because like things like that take a while to take effect. And I feel like you shouldn't be just telling people, look, ain't shit going to change and nothing's going to be better forever. Of course you shouldn't say that. But I'm saying like there's a middle ground between that and promising people the fucking moon and pie in the sky shit that you're talking about that you ain't going to be able to deliver on, which they do all the fucking time, in my opinion. Trump especially.
I don't think a better healthcare system that every other country in the world can deliver is something that's beyond us. That's a different conversation.
I agree with that.
But the fact is that like the money's fake. The government prints it when they want to print it, and they print it when they want to do stuff they want to do. They don't want to give it to people who work. They wanted to give it to like rich investors. They want to give it to Raytheon. We spent $6 trillion in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They did a tax cut in the middle of that. That got paid for. I don't understand how $2 trillion in healthcare spending can't be covered. It's beyond me why when it comes time to pay for social spending, we got to cut everything. But when it's time to like bomb a country that half of America hasn't heard of, we have unlimited funds. They print it.
For sure.
They just print it. So when you already have Biden's economic advisors saying we're not going to have the money, that's a lie. That's a lie in the other direction. Them saying we can't do it because we don't have the money is a lie. It's just a lie. And that's what gets me. If you're going to lie, my point is if you're going to lie in politics, you should not lie to keep billionaires' taxes lower. You should lie in an effort to get people better lives. Because that's better. It's better politics and it's more humane. Like push for unreasonable things. Push for free college. Yes. Maybe you'll get college. Like college is basically free in the 1970s. We like public colleges cost like you could pay for a whole semester for like $300 if you didn't need room and board. Like we already had these things. We can go back to having them. It's not fantastical to think we can have them. So
100%. I agree with you on all of that. But the way this all got started was talking about like people being cynical about the government and the process, and thus they're not going to vote at all, right? And I agree with everything you're saying, but I don't think this particular election is the same as the rest of them at all. Like I'm sympathetic to all of those arguments. I mean, growing up in my small town in Tennessee, the general political stance was none of them give a fuck about us, and fuck all of them. They're all full of shit, right? Which, like, I'm sympathetic to, but if you don't realize, like, if you need someone to make all these elaborate promises to you in order to motivate you to come out and vote in this election because you don't realize what the stakes really are or what the alternative is, if we continue down this path for 4 more years, I don't understand that. Like, I get people being upset about it. I understand. I'm upset about it too, but like, the stakes are too high right now. Like, right now, all any of us should really be like the number one priority for all of us right now should be stopping the bleeding, in my opinion, because that's how bad things are. And there's so many things I want to see enacted and think we should be able to enact, but like, priority number one right now should be stopping the fucking bleeding and getting him out of there, and then we can start trying to move in the opposite direction the way that we should. Like, that's how I look at it.
It's not that I don't understand your point or don't even agree with it. It's not good. It's not good salesmanship. Like, it's not good politics.
For sure.
Yeah, right. To be like, but I know you're cynical because guys like me have never done anything for you. But please, you got to vote for me one last time. Otherwise, everything's going to burn down. It's not a good sales pitch. It's like, it'd be like if a fast food restaurant was like, we know you've given you diarrhea the last 10 times you ate here, but if you don't eat here, we're going out of business. You'd be like, well, I don't give a shit, man. What's you're not motivating me to come eat at your place. You know, like, it's bad marketing. So like, I understand it could get a lot worse, but the reason we have a progressive taxation system, there's a rational basis behind it, is because the people that have the most to lose if things fall apart. People at the bottom don't have a lot to lose. They just don't. So like, you're trying to convince them to go vote and promising them no actual change other than it won't get worse for people who have a lot at stake, which isn't them.
Dude, I'm from a place, I grew up in a place, my hometown in Clay County in Tennessee, that like, where people don't have a lot, where nobody has a lot, nobody has nothing. And I'm telling you right now, it has gotten way fucking worse between this time in 2016 and right now in 2020, August 2016 and August 2020. It has gotten so much fucking worse. With COVID, and the hospital is closed and reopened and closed again, and there hasn't been any progress in any direction. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like we pretty much agree about this. No. We just have this like one.
We're talking about marketing here, but also that like, right. It's weird to listen to people yell about cynicism when, like, okay, if we're talking about winning elections and doing good for people here, something like 70% of people are for Medicare for all, right? It's like 70% of Americans. Right. It's no-brainer politics. Trump campaigned. People forget Trump campaigned on giving everyone health care. He was lying, but he was aspirational. He understood that people wanted promises for better things. There were people who voted for him because they thought he would deliver a better healthcare system than Obamacare. He was obviously lying, but it worked. So I'm saying, like, what does it say? The Democratic Party want to announce they're for something that 98% of their voters are for, and 70% of the entire American electorate's for. Yeah, you know, it's frustrating to me that this is a layup they won't take because they feel they lose campaign funds, and that's so. What I'm saying is, like, to yell about cynicism, that dynamic. There's a reason. There's a well-founded reason people are cynical. That's all I'm saying is, like, you can talk about how it's unfair to be cynical right now, or it's
no, that's not what I was trying to say. It's very fair to be. Hell, I mean, I'm cynical at the end of the day. It's totally fair to be cynical. I'm saying, in this election specifically, more so than any other election we've had in my lifetime, like, I think you need to put that aside for a second and then go back to the cynicism after November.
You've convinced me. I'm going to vote, Trey. But I'm telling you, I'm just saying, the thing that bugs me about the speech is, like, this is why people are cynical, is you're telling me I have to vote for you, but also you can't offer me anything. And in a dynamic where the other side is going to promise their voters the moon, they're promising an end to crime. Trump promised them victories in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and Iran, who we're not even in a open conflict with. That they're going to promise them that North Korea is not going to have a nuke, even though they already have one. That like when one side's making promises and the other side's like shrugging, you're going to lose. You just are. So that dynamic just frustrates me.
Right. Well, look. At the end of the day, should the Democrats do more? Absolutely. I'd be happy if they did fucking anything. Generally speaking, like I'm as frustrated with them as anybody. Believe me, but I just can't stomach the alternative. Anyway, all right.
Sorry, I just derailed you in an argument where we 85% agreed, and we were.
Well, we wouldn't be American progressives if we didn't.
We did it.
Go tear into each other over the 15% we disagree on. Anyway, Kamala also had a speech last night where she formally accepted the nomination, and I thought she did a very solid job too. In her address, she had a couple good sound bites, a couple good quotes. That's what really matters in speeches is sound bites. But she said, "There's no vaccine for racism," and then also, and this is related to the thing I was just saying about Obama at the end of his speech. At the end of her speech, she said, "Years from now, this moment will have passed, and our children and our grandchildren will look in our eyes and ask us, 'Where were you when the stakes were so high?' They will ask us, 'What was it like?' And we will tell them not just how we felt, we will tell them what we did." And again, I agree. Just that whole being on the right side of history argument is something that has been behind most of my political opinion since I was a kid. You know what I mean? Growing up in the rural South, just knowing I don't want my grandkids to be ashamed of me, basically. So I thought she was on to something with that.
We should be well versed in that, knowing how us and our parents grew up ashamed of their grandparents to a certain degree, or lying about what life was like in the South. But shame is I don't know, word. There's certainly some shame wrapped up in it. I don't mean to insult my grandparents. But yeah, I wonder, every election of my life, people have said it was the most important election of our lifetimes, and somehow they always are, but it seems like things are getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. Right.
It's 2000, people said it in 2000, and it retroactively turned out to be true after 9/11, and then 2004, because the Iraq war kept going, and then 2008, that happened. I guess 2012 wasn't that important looking back. Maybe.
Right.
And then 2017, and then we're here.
A lighthearted fun fact from Kamala's speech: apparently, her children call her Mamala, so that's fun.
I saw some corny people on Twitter talking about when Jill Biden gave her speech. Oh, we have a new national mommy and a Mamala, and I was just rolled my eyes to let these spun around my head 20 times.
All right, so damn, we're almost to the point where we normally take the audience questions.
We wouldn't have enough content to
I know. Just so y'all know, behind the scenes, Pete. Before we started, me and Mark were like, I don't know if we're gonna have content from the news the past couple of days to go for an hour, and then here we are. We haven't even got to one of the biggest things that we absolutely want to and are about to talk about.
And that is Bannon.
Yeah, Steve Bannon. He got arrested off his boat. So that's fun. Now look, it's one of those things where I'm sure at the end of the day he'll end up getting off with a slap on the wrist, if that. But still, take him where you can get him.
His two charges could end up with 20-year sentences each, so he could, in theory, spend 40 years in prison. I'm assuming he'll get 6 months house arrest with that on the same yacht the rest of them.
Yes, that is absolutely what will happen. But anyway, for now, he got arrested, so let's rejoice. If anybody somehow doesn't know, what he got arrested for was fraudulent behavior regarding a nonprofit that he helps to run. Called We Build the Wall. So they have fundraisers. People donate money to this nonprofit whose mission statement is we build a wall. Like, they got it. It's right there in the title. Like they let you know what they're about. The idea is you give them money, they build a wall, keep the Mexicans out. Pretty simple, right? But weirdly, even though building a wall across the entire southern U.S. border seems like such a simple proposition, they haven't really made any progress on that front, and instead have just been taking all the money people donate to them and just lining their pockets with it. I don't know who could have possibly foreseen that happening, but that is what has happened. But weirdly, they have been arrested for it.
I mean, them getting arrested is the weird part, because
yes,
half the right-wing fundraising ecosystem is a grift operation.
Right.
Which, if you flip past Fox News and all the commercials are for fund this pro-life campaign by buying a commemorative chess set, or give us your cash for your dirty, useless cash for our great gold, which will be useful in the coming apocalypse. We don't want the gold. We want you to have it. It's like there's tons of like these mailer operations that pop up, and like the thing is, like, just like with the NRA lawsuit we talked about a couple weeks ago, and the ostensible victims of this are like conservatives who contribute to these causes.
Yes, right.
And just like a lot of like right wing campaigns have this too, where they have these mailer campaigns where it'd be like, donate to pro-life Americans for Marco Rubio for Senate, and then Marco Rubio's campaign has no affiliation, no contact with them, and none of the money gets spent on anything campaign related. They just all goes into paying the salaries of the people who work for the organization, and they do maybe spend 10% of an operation. So it's like, so Marco Rubio ostensibly gets hurt by that, as do his constituents. Just like this, the people who wanted to build the wall donated to this, and then a guy bought a boat with it.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, again, them getting arrested is the weird part, because if you look into the finances of a lot of charities and nonprofits and stuff, you'll find what you just said, where 90% of it goes to other places, and 10% goes toward the actual mission statement, right?
Yeah.
And some of them are worse than others. But I don't know. Fuck Steve Bannon forever. I'm glad this happened, that he got arrested and all that. I hope he gets brought to justice. But I just if you're donating money to the We Build a Wall charity, I don't feel sorry for you that you instead bought a boat for these motherfuckers, No,
I don't. No, that's not. But I will say, I think one of the reasons they got arrested is because their grift was way too obvious. Because one, they're you donate money to me to campaign for a politician, and I just don't do it, or do it half-heartedly. How do you prove how hard I tried at something, or if I pay myself $1 million for what it should have been $300,000 worth of advertisements, how do you prove what a fair cut off the top is, or whatever? All that's very fluid. They were taking contributions to build a literal, tangible object. So when it didn't exist, it wasn't there, and you have a boat, it gets way easier to prove. And also, this isn't a thing. One of the reasons the wall never get built is because only the government can take the land for it.
Yes.
People own this land, and it's very hard to use eminent domain to take people's land, especially in a conservative state with a libertarian bent. And militias will go and stand in front of your track hose and your bulldozers. So a private charity, I just don't think could ever just go build a wall on the southern border. So it was
of course not. Right, right. That's one thing that I was saying, because I used to work for the federal government in the Department of Energy, whole other agency, but still I worked for the federal government, and so I was saying from the very beginning with Trump, his whole building a wall thing, that goddamn wall ain't ever getting built. I promise you. And I mean, at this point, 4 years in, we can see that it's not, but at the time he was making all these lofty promises about it, and it's just not. If you know anything about government projects and government contracts and how they operate, and something like that, something as divisive and difficult as that, like you said, it's going to call people out to sort of stand in front of the track hose and shit like that. There's no fucking way that wall ain't ever getting built, even by the government. And when you donate money to a small nonprofit that's promising to do it, yeah, there's just, I don't know. You get what you deserve because that shit was never going to fucking happen.
Have you noticed that border state politicians are never for building the wall? Like that, like Will Hurd was the I think the only black Republican in the House, and his district stretched out along a big chunk of the Texas border, and he retired rather than argue about it anymore because he hated Trump. But like his constituents aren't for building the wall, and you know, like McCain's big flip flop last time he ran for the Senate was to build the dang fence or whatever, and everyone's like, you've been against building this fence forever because it's a bad idea and it won't work, and it screws over a bunch of ranchers. I mean, imagine if like. One, if you have a cattle ranch along the Rio Grande, and that's where your cattle get their water, where are you putting the fence at?
Right.
It screws up the ecosystem because animals don't follow national borders; they go back and force across the border. And they were going to build trade. The route they're going to build the fence on was going to be 300 miles inland from the border. So American citizens are going to be trapped on the other side of the border that the federal government was ostensibly relinquishing to the Sinaloa cartel. This is a bad idea all around. And yeah.
Also, and not to mention the thing that gets brought up all the time because it's true. Like, even if you did do that, even if they did complete it, got past all these obstacles that we're talking about, and actually were successful in accomplishing it, that's not going to stop illegal immigration anyway. So all the other shit we set aside, it's also pointless. So, like,
there are already tunnels.
Give up on the goddamn wall, conservatives. It ain't happening.
There are already tunnels. But El Chapo tunneled himself out of prison. He rode a motorcycle out of prison down. Like, these guys tunnel. That was actually El Chapo's big specialty, was building tunnels. But they have submarines. They use submarines and drones. They're not like they're billion-dollar multi-billion-dollar corporations. They don't need to walk in. Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Okay, so yeah, with 10 minutes left, let's see what you guys are saying over here. Joe Cairo said, P.S. Trey, rock the handlebar. It's working. Thanks, Joe. I pointed this out before on the show. It's always a Joe or a Mike or it's always a guy telling me that the mustache is really working, which that's still, I value y'all's opinion. You know, I think you guys are right. You guys understand. Other people don't.
What's Katie think?
Katie said it's fun. That's what Katie's response to it is. It's fun. She's used to being ridiculous and stuff, so I think she's fine with it. Right. And she doesn't care how my face looks. Never has, I don't think.
As long as the mortgage is paid.
Let's see here. I do need a haircut, though. I need one for a while, but you can get them now in California. You can get a haircut. You just got to sit outside and whatnot. But I just haven't. I don't know. I haven't gone into it. I haven't actually given it a chance.
My wife's can't be the beard trim though. My wife's been doing mine. She's doing an okay job. I think it's time for another one.
Judy Phillips said you should consider having a mod on these feeds. The trolls are thick. I have no idea how to go about that. Moderating the comments and whatnot, keeping people out, but I don't know. Just ignore them. Don't fake the trolls. Y'all been on the internet. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's just a sign of how popular Trey is that he has so many haters. So just ignore him like he does.
Matthew Thulin said, you never mentioned Mark's post on Twitter last week about, and I think this is a typo, it says video. Here's what it says. The word video, the letter N, and then the word porn. Video in porn, all one word, going viral. What's he talking about, Mark?
I think what he's talking about is VR porn. I made a joke about, oh God, it's one of those things where like when a tweet goes viral, people think you mean it more somehow. Like I have control over that. I made a dumb joke about having to vote through the mail and how how upside down technology is, where we can I can watch VR porn while I ordered a pizza through an Alexa, but I got to vote the same way Revolutionary War soldier did when he to write horny poems to a girl he made at a witch drowning, I think was the joke. But But then I got a bunch of people telling me that you can't vote online because it's hard. It's like, I actually understand the problem with it now. But the thing is, like, I'm not going to retract my stupid joke because it's just a stupid joke.
Yeah.
I tried to update it with actual information below it, but it doesn't matter. People are still yelling at me for being factually incorrect. But I guess the problem with online voting is, like, banking, for example, you have to be secure, but you don't have to be anonymous. The problem with voting is it's hard to make things both secure and anonymous, which is the difficulty. So I was wrong, Internet. You can stop yelling at me. I still think it's a bad system that we still have with technological resources are wasted making VR porn, but yeah.
So an actual political comment over here. Regina Gully said, thoughts on Trump boycotting Goodyear?
My understanding was somebody thought, or maybe there was a video where somebody tried to go to work in a Goodyear plant and they were wearing a MAGA hat or a thin blue line shirt or something and got turned away, and Trump made a big deal about that. And it was just a workplace trying to stop people from wearing stuff and start political arguments at work, which I think is fairly understandable. But I don't really. It's also their First Amendment. I don't really have a stance on it. I think it's bad politics for him to try to get a company that's based in Ohio to the business. Right.
Well, that I saw a tweet about that like, and you know, of course I haven't fact checked this or anything, but it said it named Goodyear's top 5 closest competitors, and they were all headquartered in other countries. So it's basically Trump saying buy anything but American, you know, just because the American company pissed him off. So he said, fuck them, boycott them, give it to the Italians or the Japanese or the Germans or whatever instead. So that all checks out. That's about right.
And apparently they pay their people a good living wage, and they've stayed in America, and they seem like a decent company as far as people that make tires could be, you know, fossil fuels and all that. But seems like you're doing a good shot at trying at least. And here goes the president trying to put him out of business with because they won't let somebody wear his hat.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You can't wear hats in nightclubs, man. It's fine.
Brian Wells says, do you think Bannon was trying to hide? If you mean like on his boat, no, I don't. I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I obviously could be completely wrong, but I feel like he was never worried. I don't think he was ever worried for a second about getting caught or punished for any of that shit that he was doing. Also, Mark, we didn't bring up the fact that he was arrested by agents from the U.S. Postal Service, which is fucking weird given the whole situation. People didn't even know, like, who even knows that the Postal Service has, like, you know, armed agents, but also all the shit that's been going on with the Postal Service lately, and for them to pop up in this capacity is fucking simulation's wild.
It is funny on a lot of levels because the post office police took their post office police boat out to arrest Steve Bannon. And I didn't know they have police. I didn't know their police had boats. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, it seems like a few police things could be defunded right here. We could put in actual mail sorting machines. I think the FBI could have handled Steve Bannon. They probably have a boat. I don't know. It seems like a lot of redundancy built into this system.
I will say, having worked for the federal government, I was aware that, and I'm sure there are some exceptions, but for the most part, any governmental agency you can think of, like, they have cops, like they have their own, like, enforcement arm or whatever.
I guess it makes sense. Like if you're investigating like a postal theft ring where employees are stealing birthday money out of people's cards or whatever, it makes sense to have somebody to investigate that. And there's probably a lot of scams you can run with the mail. Not to mention like mafia style stuff where you're doing protection rackets for us, whose stuff gets picked up and whose doesn't. But like my thing is, like, I don't understand why they're involved in the Steve Bannon thing. But a funny thought did just occur to me that one reason he's not going to go to jail is because he has a ton of money to pay rest because he has Seinfeld. He made a bunch of money off Seinfeld and a bunch of other shit. So like it's Seinfeld residual checks. Imagine he has $500 million. So he can just pay restitution, so the end result of this prosecution will be money going back in the Build the Wall fund. So that's
ain't that America? So here's one. And I'm gonna try to show this one. Actually, again, we're working with new software here tonight, y'all. So I don't know. Let's see how this works. Look at that. You see that, Mark? Carla Barrick. Carla Barrick, question: should Biden/Harris stump more and be outspoken about Trump, or write it out? My general opinion on that is, if it ain't broke, don't break it. Like, like it seems like as long as it seems to be working, why fuck it up? Meaning, Trump, as long as Trump's going to continue to hang himself, give him more rope. You know what I mean?
And Biden's been doing small scale public appearances, like doing the normal meet and greets at factories and whatnot, wearing a mask, and they're not as grandiose as Trump because he's worried about things aren't asymmetrical. Like if Biden jumpstarts a COVID outbreak, he's going to get a lot of shit and hate for it, where Trump could do it and his supporters don't care. So, you know what I'm saying? Like they're in more of a box than Trump is. I don't know what to do about that, or what they should, or whether they should care. All
right. What about this one from Mobius Zero? You can tell the difference in the YouTube and the Facebook commenters generally, because like Facebook is people's names and YouTube is people's Mobius names. Mobius Zero says, "Do you think that Dems will win big in the Senate?" No, just because I'm gun shy as far as that goes. Like I would love it if it happens, but I've been burned so many times. I'm like, I don't know. I'm the same way as like a Tennessee football fan, which I am. Every year I am hopeful that it'll be different, despite the fact it never is different. I'm still hopeful every year. And I've been that way about like Tennessee politics or Southern politics. Like I was hopeful that Phil Bredesen was going to win. You know what I mean? Going back years ago, I was hopeful that Harold Ford Jr. was going to win. That's a deep cut for y'all. And it just typically doesn't happen. So if you're like putting a gun to my head, Vegas odds, do I think it will happen? I'm going to say no, just to cover my bases, but I certainly hope so. I don't know what the actual analytics look like, Mark.
Well, I looked at a map because I wasn't curious. So as far as pickups go, so Arizona's probable. There are a bunch of toss-ups like North Carolina, Georgia, Iowa, Colorado, Montana. Those are in Maine. Those are the ones like so. They have 40. Democrats have 47 right now, so they got to hold and pick up 3, assuming they win the presidency. So they have the tiebreaker vote to control the Senate, right? So, I mean, I'm looking at could win. There's 6 states that are toss-ups. They're controlled by Republicans, it looks like, and it's definitely a possibility. But like, do you really think like Lindsey Graham's within the margin of error, right? The rest of it's like Georgia and North Carolina. So I don't know, man. Flip a quarter, dude. Like you got to get 2 of those 6. 2 of these 6: Montana, Colorado, Iowa, Georgia, North Carolina, and Maine. Now Susan Collins is deep underwater, I think.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm hopeful. Do I expect it? No, just because I've learned not to expect good things in American politics. I mean, hell, honestly, that's how I feel about the presidential election. At the end of the day, I know everything, looks bad for Trump, but I'm still fucking terrified, to be honest with you. And if we could wake up on November 4th and still have the House and have the White House, like the House of Representatives and have the White House, I'll take that as a major victory. Although obviously I would love it if we just, had a clean sweep. So we'll see.
I mean, if you want things to get better, like we were arguing about earlier, like you've got to control the Senate and then get rid of the filibuster. So that's a fight for January.
Right. But we'll see what happens. Well, all right. Well, we are out of time. Thank you all so much for being with us. It seems like this new system we're running, this new software we're using, it seems like it works as far as I could tell. So we're going to keep doing it. And thank you all very much for being here. And we'll see you next Tuesday on Evening Skews. Can't wait. See you. Love you. Bye.